Show me your true form!
We've got the advantage. Persona! This enemy is beneath us. It should be easy to stay focused. Feel my rage! Let me go!
Persona! Ravage them!
Now, let's continue. Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Oh!
What the hell are you doing here? Don't tell me you busted into prison to rescue me!
Join us, alright? Come on, let's get you out of here!
Piece of cake. That's incredible.
All right.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today I'm very excited. I get to finally talk about Persona 5. I've been playing this game off and on, but mostly on since it came out over a month ago. Other games have come out, and other games obviously I've been playing as well, but Persona 5 is a game that I've really wanted to talk about for a long time, and unfortunately with Atlus's whole situation with banning people that are streaming the game like too far in, but then also like completely disabling the video features on the PS4 and allowing you to share gameplay and share screenshots and stuff, which is really stupid, by the way. Like, I understand if you want to block the end of the game, that's understandable because you don't want to spoil it, but for a game that's already been out in Japan since last September, it just really doesn't make sense. Like, the people that want to know the end of this game are already going to be able to figure that out and already know the end of the game because it's all over the internet. I will preface this by saying I have not finished Persona 5. I am at the 65-hour mark. I'm still actively playing the game, but I've played more than enough. I have all the characters in the game now, and I feel like I'm more than qualified to give my overall impressions and thoughts on the game, tell you guys if it's good, if you should buy it, or if it's bad. And obviously you can probably tell by the glowing smile on my face here that Persona 5 is really good. A very damn good game. It's a very good RPG. Really sparks and shines in what's already been a very unprecedented, great year for video games. Persona 5 is another one that's really going to fight for the top spot on my Game of the Year list at the end of the year. The best thing that I can say about Persona 5 is that it encaptures so many great story elements. The whole game is just story, which is fantastic. And it even, because the story is so good, because these characters are so memorable, that even the slightest missteps in this game are fairly easy to overlook because the game is just so good. Graphically, the game is very impressive, but you have to remember going in that this was a PS3 game. This game's development started on PS3. You can go out and buy this game on PS3. It's one of the last PS3 releases for the system for sure. But you can go out and buy the game from PS3. It is a PS3 game. It obviously runs better on the PS4. It looks sharper and crisper. Other than that, they are the same identical game. I'm playing it on the PS4, but I have small gripes with the game. Not a perfect game. I fully believe no game is perfect, but I have a couple small gripes. One of the things, and this isn't like a thing that puts the game down anyway necessarily, but there are gorgeous anime cutscenes in this game. A lot of them, but not enough. My problem with it is it seems like every time you get an anime cutscene in this game, and they're all so well done and so well animated, that when you get these anime cutscenes and you get into them and you get invested into it, especially when you're invested in the story. They just seem like they end too quickly. I would like to see them have gone on just a little bit longer. And although it does really feel like when you get one of those that you're rewarded with this great cutscene in the game, but there's not enough of them. I really wish there were more in this game. Obviously, the biggest thing about Persona and the most well-known thing about Persona is that the game is all about story. It's all about characters and character development. The greatest and best thing I can say about Persona 5 is that nothing in this game is forced or rushed. Like, you earn your time with every character that is presented to you in the game. At 65 hours in now, and at the 60-hour mark is when I finally got the last character for my team. I thought I was done getting characters, and then this new part of the story came to be here, and out comes another character, and I was blown away that at 60 hours in, I'm still unlocking characters and parts of this story. For sure. So I'm on the 6th dungeon. I believe there are 8. The characters, like, every single one of them is fascinating and interesting. They all have really good stories and backstories. Each one of them is fascinating in a way that's refreshing, because a lot of times in games or even movies, stories and stuff, like, characters are introduced, but they're never really well developed. And that's one thing that's always a positive in video games, is you have the time there to really develop a story and really develop a character in a way that can't really be developed in anything other than, like, maybe a book or something. But a 2 to 3 hour movie can't develop a story like an 80 to 100 hour RPG can. The great thing about Persona is you probably want to be into JRPGs if you want to play a game like this, but however, you don't have to. Like, if this may be your first JRPG, it's a fantastic place to start. It's not incredibly challenging. Like, it can be a challenging game, and we'll get to that part of it later in this video. However, it's not so challenging that it puts you off, where, like, a lot of times with RPGs, you start out and then you always hit a wall where there's a level grind. If you don't get up to the level grind that you're looking for, the game just kind of falls apart. At least that's how it is for me. So as a kid, I had a really bad time. Part of it was because I didn't buy a lot of video games. I rented a lot of video games, but especially the PS1 era, I probably played every JRPG for the PS1 era that came out in America, but I only rented them. I didn't own very many of them, other than like Final Fantasy 7, 8, and Legend of Dragoon, and a few select ones, Chrono Cross. The problem there was because I rented these games, I only ever started them and I never finished them, and part of it was because I rented the game. Sometimes it was simply because you hit that wall in them where they become a slog, because you have to go and grind 20 levels before you can defeat this boss or something like that. I haven't really had that problem in Persona. Maybe one time did I encounter a boss that I had to go and do something specifically and then come back to that boss. But it wasn't enough that I was upset about it. At first when it happened, I was like, okay, sure, of course, like, we're doing this again. Just like every single RPG does that kind of stuff. But then I realized, as I was able to quickly take care of that, it wasn't the problem that I thought it was going to be at all. One of the biggest things that made me nervous about Persona 5 was Persona 4 was my first Persona game, I do at some point want to go back and play at least Persona 3. Persona 4 was my first Persona game. I had originally tried a little bit of it on the PS2, but you have to remember, when that game came out, it came out in 2008 on the PS2, and PS3 was already out. I was really invested in the Xbox 360. It was the kind of thing where I went out and I bought it, because when that game came out, it's actually kind of a funny story when I talk about Persona 4 and like my experiences with Persona 4. I bought it like a couple months after it came out, really, really cheap, secondhand, at like a local thrift store. It was just like a weird game I saw, and the only reason I picked it up, actually now I think about it, it might have been the year after, so it would have been 2009. The only reason I picked it up is because I've been watching the Giant Bomb guys do this absurd endurance run, and I thought the game looked really interesting and different, for especially for an RPG. So I went and I picked it up, and I played like maybe 10 hours of it there, but just too many other things were happening and too many other games and stuff were coming out, so I kind of put it down. And then it got a re-release on the Vita in 2013, and it's actually the reason I bought a Vita, to play this game, because I remembered, like, I really liked Persona 4, but I couldn't get into it, and that was really the way to play that game. But the characters and stuff were the thing that I fell in love with that game. And they kind of did different spin-off games of Persona 4. They did a couple of fighting games that are actually really decent and solid fighting games, to be fair. And they also did that Dancing All Night Vita game, which I never played, but I want to. But the thing that was always interesting about Persona 4, they also did a 3DS like dungeon crawler game, which I do have. And that also was a really good game. It's just really long. But the thing that I love about Persona 4 was every character was interesting and fascinating. So my worry of jumping to Persona 5 was this is going to be all new characters. It's an all new story. It takes place in an all new different part of Japan, I guess. And my big fear was, what if I don't like these characters? What if these characters are lame? Because the characters in Persona 4 are so freaking good. And that's not the case at all. These characters in this game stand neck and neck with the characters from Persona 4. Maybe when I, fully finish the game, I might think even higher of them. But it's a testament to how well each character in this game is written. So the story of Persona 5 is that you play as a character. You can create your own name. I think I named my character in my game William for some reason. I don't know why. It was just the first name that popped in my head. But anyways, when you start the game, you're going to school, or I think you're walking down like an alley at night, or not even alley, you're like on the street. So you're walking down this street and you see this dude and this girl kind of in an argument where he's kind of like pushing her and stuff, and you go to stop them, and basically what happens is like he's kind of roughing her up a little bit. Like this, if there's one thing I'll say about Persona 5 is it earns its M rating. Like, it is a very adult game. It deals with very heavy adult themes and topics and stuff in a very refreshing way. It's not a kid's, it might look like a kid's game. It is super not a kid's game. Anyways, this guy's kind of roughing this girl up and everything, and you essentially stop him, and this cop comes and everything, and you basically kind of push him a little bit, but he makes it worse than it actually is. The cop comes and he basically says, oh, he pushed me and punched me in the face and hurt me and everything. And so what happens is you essentially are now a juvenile delinquent, and you have to leave. You go to a different town, you live with a different guy, and go to a different school. So you have like a guardian situation. Even that character, the dude that you live with, he's freaking cool. The character involved with him that actually becomes one of the main characters of your posse later on in the game, that whole storyline is super fascinating and interesting, and they start weaving the seeds of that storyline very early on in the game, and it wasn't until like maybe the 40-hour mark that storyline really came to a head and started becoming a thing in the game. But it's like even that is a huge thing. You go and you live in this different town, you go to a different school, you start meeting people. One of the first people you meet is named Ryuji. I'm going to butcher these people's names because some of them are Japanese. Ryuji is the first guy. He's got like a bleach blonde haircut, even though they say many times, like pretty much they're in Japan, everybody's hair is dark. He dyes his hair to look different. But his backstory is cool. The first dungeon in this game, let's jump into the dungeons and stuff in Persona 5. So Persona 4 was all about the TV world and everything, because that's kind of what was popular at the time, and it's been 9 years since Persona 4, so technology is advanced and stuff. So in Persona 4, you were all about jumping into this TV and then going into the TV world to stop a murderer. In Persona 5, you are on a group that's called, you name yourselves the Phantom Thieves, and what you do is you go into these worlds through a phone app, which sounds absurd, but I love everything about it. You go into the different realm, as they call it, through a cell phone app, essentially, and when you're in the other world, they are changing people's hearts. That's their point of being the Phantom Thieves. So the dungeons, or palaces as they call them in this game, are catered to each person and kind of like their wicked heart. So essentially what you're doing is you're going in their like distorted realm of reality to them, and you are going through their dungeon or their palace, as it were, and you have to steal their treasure, which is like the most valuable thing to them or something. Think of something like Citizen Kane, but anyways, and you're stealing that thing, and then it changes their heart, and they kind of confess like, hey, I've been crazy, what am I doing? So the first character in this game is an abusive teacher at your school, and he's literally just beating the shit out of kids. He's a coach. I want to say, I can I'm 65 hours in, so some stuff is a little hazy. I believe he's a volleyball coach, but he is abusing kids. He's literally just beating the shit out of people on this team, and you don't ever see the actual act of him beating anybody, but it's obvious what's going on for sure. They introduce their weird otherworld character. Like, each game has one of these. In this game, it is Morgana. Morgana is a cat. They say very early on Morgana's a dude. Morgana the cat. So in the real world, he shows up as a cat, like a normal ass cat, and then in the other world, he looks a little more cartoony essentially. But he's really cool. One of the most fascinating characters. And as someone who was a huge fan of Teddy in Persona 4, I was really leery, like, I don't know if this cat character can match what Teddy was for me in Persona 4. And no, Morgana is a fantastic character. When the kids go into the Persona realm, we're just going to call it the Persona realm, they each have different aliases, and they kind of unlock their persona, essentially, which is their true self, or true form, as they call it in the game. And they get like a weird mask that they then rip off their face. They have different outfits in the Persona realm. So with that comes code names. Each person has a code name, like your character, for whatever reason. And I think this is another gripe of the game. Again, my gripes are so minor and minuscule, but whatever. The main character, the character that you play as throughout the story, his code name is Joker, and I just think that's stupid. Each character has a different code name and a different, like, other self when they go into the Persona realms, as it were. And they each have their own persona. True to a Persona game, your character can hold many different personas, whereas each other character that's in your party only has one specific persona. And that's how it's always been. That's probably how it'll always be. But they're all very cool. But again, every character in this game is interesting, and just when I think I've learned everything about a character, something gets thrown into the mix that I didn't know. Each palace is so well thought out. The one that sticks in my mind the most as the most interesting palace would be the third one. The third palace and the third boss and dungeon in the game revolves around like a corrupt, almost mafioso guy, essentially. He basically, they say many times, like throughout the story before you get to the dungeon, like he just literally looks at people as ATM machines. So when you get to the dungeon world, the distorted version of his reality is that people are walking around as broken ATM machines. And when he's done like trying to siphon off money from these people, he has them killed. So it's kind of dark in the way of like you're playing through in the Persona realm, and you might see a walking ATM machine just fall over and be dead, and that means that their real life version is dead. But his whole palace is just a giant bank with a vault, which is really cool. So each one is tailored to that specific person. Like the second guy is a painter, the second dungeon, so that one's all about painting and everything there. And then after that, like each one is tailored to the character that you're playing against. It's really well done, and just, oh man, every single dungeon is awesome. However, it can't be a Persona game without also being a teenager again, and that's exactly what Persona brings to the table with the real world stuff. So on top of dungeon crawling and fighting these people and going into the Persona realm, you also have to go to school every day. You can get different jobs, after school jobs. There's different people that you have relationships with in the game. There's tons of things to do, and it's all about living a teenager lifestyle again, going to school again, all of that stuff. And you basically live out like an entire year that starts, I'm trying to think of when the game started. I want to say it's like April. So, and that's the thing. And all of that is fantastic too. Like I love doing all that kind of shit in the fourth game, and it's just even better here in 5. If there's only one other gripe I have about Persona 5, it is, and this is a problem with the Persona series as a whole, it's not just Persona 5, but my main gripe with this series is that in the later levels, it becomes more luck based in later dungeons with higher level enemies. They'll have one hit kill hits and stuff that they can do, and it just becomes unfair and luck based, because like, yeah, I can go and grind levels as much as I want, but if you can hit me with a one hit kill move, it's over. Like, and that's stupid, and it hasn't really reared its ugly head as much as previous Persona games for me, but it is still a thing that it's there in the game, and it's really annoying. Final two things I'll talk about in the game. There is also a free dungeon world area that's constantly changing called Mementos. And that's where you can kind of do your level grinding. You can also do side missions. Every side mission is really interesting too, and they bring some smaller storylines to the story that are very interesting, but there's not enough of them, if that's my one complaint. It just seems like I kind of flew through those really fast as the game progressed. And they're not very long. They're kind of bite-sized chunks, but they're all really interesting and really well thought out. And the final thing that I'll talk about with Persona is the music. So Persona 4 has a fantastic soundtrack, and one that, like, still, you know, years later, I still think of some of the tunes in that game. And Persona 5 ups it even more. Some of the songs in this game, and you'll have heard through this entire video, the background music is songs from the soundtrack of Persona 5. Every song is fantastic. So even the smallest, slightest, you know, loading screen, or like the main menu music or anything like that, like, it all fits so well. And that kind of just, you know, conglomerates into a ball of just the stylistic approach of this game. Everything is stylish in this game, from the loading screens, from just everything about this game. It just reeks and oozes style in a way that no other game I've played this year, even Zelda included, has had a level of style that this game has. It just oozes style left and right, and everything about it is awesome. There's, like, even the small gripes that I've had they pale in comparison to how excellent this game is. So for me, Persona is a fantastic game. I really, really like it. It's getting 2 thumbs up for me, which I guess will make the highest I can give a game is 2 thumbs up. It's getting 2 thumbs way up for me. I really like it. Even if you're not a fan of JRPGs, even if you're kind of scared or overwhelmed of, oh shit, this game's 100 hours long, don't be. Just go out and get it. Like, I can't recommend this game enough. Even if you've never played a JRPG, you've never played a Persona game, it doesn't matter. You can put this game, you can get through it. It's not hard. It really is not hard at all. I really like it. I really encourage you to go and check it out. It's really awesome. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I apologize for a lack of video clips in this review, because unfortunately with the whole Atlas thing, I wasn't able to capture as much footage as I would have liked to for this video. But thanks for sticking with it. Please go out, play Persona 5. It's really awesome. Anyways, guys, until next time.